Okay, now I'm unmuted. I'm sorry. I was just giving a little overview there. If you're calling in, sorry, I was muted, so I apologize for that. Traffic calming, we think of sometimes as 3 E's, really traffic and safety in general. There's an education component that's making sure people are aware of what the rules are, what the speed limit is, and those types of things. There's a big one's in enforcement, and we get questions all the time, why can't we just get a couple police cars out and write some tickets, and wouldn't that help? And I think it would. We all would like that. But for a couple of reasons, we don't emphasize that. Number one, it's not our jurisdiction. We can't do that. We're NDOT, and we control the right of way. But MMPD has a lot of other very important work going on as well. So they just don't have a lot of resources to dedicate to speed enforcement. And then the last part about that is it is helpful, but that impact is pretty short-lived. So, as soon as they pull away, it doesn't take long. Traffic goes back to the way it was before. So unless you have an ongoing, very robust enforcement campaign, it's very difficult to see changes day in, day out. So what we focus on is the last D, which we think, of course, is the most important. That's the engineering, where we change the infrastructure. We put things in the street to really bring about a change in how people use that street. And that's what traffic calming is all about. Having more difficulty. There it goes. So it is a residential focused program. And so that comes into play in how we choose the streets and what we limit those streets to. We do focus on physical solutions, not as much education. We have a couple of tools geared for that, but we find that putting things in the street is the most effective way to handle this. We are focused on reducing speeds as opposed to solving cut-through traffic. Sometimes people say, can't we shift some of this traffic? They're cutting through, getting around the intersection of White Ridge and Charlotte or whatever they're doing, which I'm sure they are. But we have a really hard time overcoming some of that. So we don't focus on moving it to another street as much as just slowing it down and trying to handle it that way. And then we do focus on significant links as opposed to trying to handle some issue at a spot location. There are other mechanisms, other metro programs and things that are more geared toward, if you want to crosswalk, there's a lot of pedestrians at a certain location or different things like that. I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. I can get rid of it.
Extend your screen rather than duplicating it.
Can I do that? Sure, if I change it too much, I'm going to lose it all together. I'm going to lose it all together. Okay. Yeah, let's go with it. This is a street program and not a neighborhood program, meaning what we used to do is if one street would get you in the program, then we would show up at a meeting like this and say, okay, let's talk about traffic calming. And someone would say, I think we ought to put it on this street. And someone else would say, I think we ought to put it on this street, which is another way to do it. We have shifted recently, and now we focus on streets. So Knob Road is the street we're here to look at. It's the street that the data points to, and so I don't think this is an issue for y'all. I think this was the only street that was requested. Sometimes we get an application that had a whole bunch of stuff on it, so we have to explain, and we're only doing the one where the data had that justification. I think that's about it. Limited resources. I've got a slide showing that in just a second about how in demand this program is. I promise I'm hitting it the same every time. It just, sometimes it doesn't and sometimes it doesn't. That's one way to do it. Do that. So outside some of those resources, outside of the traffic control program, a lot of times what people are really wanting on their street, slow speeds is obviously part of it, but what they really want to do is be able to walk safely. You know, they can't even walk on their neighborhood street at night or whatever. So we put, some of the bicycle and pedestrian, and, you know, if they have sidewalks, this may not even be an issue for them, but nobody in Nashville has sidewalks, everybody wants them, and so, you know, we do have those resources. Hub Nashville is the best place to start for any of it. And so if there's, you know, if there's stop sign requests or crosswalk requests or sidewalk requests, anything like that, Hub Nashville's a great place to start. Traffic calming is a little bit of an exception just because we have this application policy that we do, or application windows. We don't use Hub as much, but you can still put even traffic calming requests there in Hub Nashville. Just to let you know how lucky or how unfortunate you are, just depending on how you look at it. This is very much an in-demand program. As we do data collection twice a year for these application windows, we're now up to over 400 streets that have been requested. We're doing about 50 a year, something like that. We do 25 selections, Knob Road being one of those. And so we just don't get to as many as we would like to. And I also say that to say a lot of folks are having the same issues you all are on the streets, unfortunately. This is the way we select them. It's a composite score of 4 different pieces of data. We look at the speed that the traffic is traveling at. We look at the number of crashes that have occurred over a period of time. And then we look at 2 that are more geared toward accessibility issues, like, do you have things to walk to, like schools and parks? Y'all don't have a lot of that in this area as we do our GIS analysis. And the other one is, do you have accommodations to do that? Do you have sidewalks? Do you have bike lanes? So you don't have any of that either. So that actually drives your score up because you don't have it. Although down on the Kendall end, I know you do. So all of that rolls in together, and Knob Road was in that top 25 of all of the streets that we have. Most of that was speed. You didn't get a lot of points in the other categories, but the differential between when we dropped the speed limit down to 25 a year and a half or so ago and what traffic is actually doing, puts you on the upper echelon of streets, unfortunately. The other thing about that is this was not a new application. Bob, I think you did it. It probably goes back to 2019 or something like that. So y'all have been waiting for a while, and I think it's nice to know the city didn't forget about you. You didn't get selected for a couple of years, but you hung around in that pool. What the selection looks like, this didn't show it up very well, but I think you know your neighborhood pretty well. You actually requested Knob Road from White Ridge to about where Channel 4's driveway is. When we look at that, we would recommend there being some kind of a logical break to that. And so what we have identified is from White Ridge on over to Fleetwood. That's the always stop right there. And so it's that section of Knob is what we're proposing for the traffic calming location. Okay. I'll show you what that looks like.
We stop where?
At Fleetwood and Fleetwood.
So all the way off the whole road.
So this
Not combine Knob Hill with. I understand.
yeah, that's
I
right.
mean, this is Russell Drive, and it's not all, but you don't even put that into that.
Where does it change? Where's Russell?
Midway down the hill.
Midway down the hill.
How that little thing goes south, that little like dead end road farther left,
This here?
that's where it changes, that's the left.
Well, Russell Knob combination. That's what's proposed. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we talk about it. See, we went through this 15 to 20 years ago. Okay? And it was always the people that live coming off of White Ridge Road to Canada. They got sidewalks. I mean, it's.
But then they're gonna have 18 or 13.
You got commercial business. This street should have been renamed All Knob or whatever. It never was. They classify this as a feeder street, not a collector.
No, it's not.
It's not a collect. Let me talk about that. bring that up. So let me, point out the colors here. So blue is what we're talking about in terms of being the scope of this project. There's a couple of other colors. Purple, those are classified as collector streets, meaning, you know, we expect there to be a little bit higher traffic volume on those. We sometimes expect those to move a little faster at a higher speed limit. That's Hillwood Boulevard. And then there's red ones, which are the highest classification. Those are arterial. Those are Charlotte Pike, White Ridge Road. Knob is not classified as either. I would say, and I would agree, that Knob acts more like a collector than some other local streets do. So totally agree with that. It is, however, rolled in as a local, and therefore it was dropped. So we look at it as all the same. Even though,
Because it's actually not, in practicality, that's why people don't follow the speed limit, because it should be
Just roll up in here.
it should be changed to the figure square, I mean, the collector instead of being classified as one.
well, let's keep going, and we'll talk more about specifics about what you think on the plan, and should we change it on some all.
We already have a traffic on that street. We have speed signs up. We have the signs.
But the data, even with that, is still saying it hasn't made a difference, or there's. still-
Okay, and you can put those same data on Charlotte Pike or White Bridge Road, and the speed limit on White Bridge Road is 40 miles an hour. I guarantee you the average speed on White Bridge Road is 50 miles an hour. Charlotte Avenue is the same way. It's 5 to 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. You know, our street should be a collector street because it joins two major White Bridge Road and Charlotte Avenue, straight shot. Why it was never changed to that, I will never know.
Well, let me-
If you try to put speed humps in that first section, you're gonna reroute over to Pine Ridge. You're gonna
And that's.
start away trail. All you're doing is diverting over to these other streets.
Yeah, I don't know, that's a pretty long.
It's a real, but it's.
So you're gonna have to let us kind of get through the information, because other people want to hear and listen to this, and then we can talk about it, it's okay, but let's get on through this so we can look at specific neighborhood stuff. Just a couple of the tools that we've got. Speed cushions is a big one. This is, some people think of us, we are the speed cushion program. That is okay, because we use these often, and probably 95% of our plans are based on speed cushions. And so if you're not familiar, O'Brien just got them. I know it's not very far away. There are others, Breslin, I think has some. There are others, they work all the same way. We like these for a couple of reasons. One is we use the same vendor for all of them. So what you see on those streets is the same product. So there's some known quantity to that. They are effective. We know that. And lastly, there's not a lot of unintended side effects. Sometimes with some of these other tools, we put them out and maybe there's more traffic that doesn't come through there every day. You know, again, like we're pointing out, this probably has more traffic that is not as accustomed to the street. They're coming through here every once in a while or something like that. But these we kind of know how traffic reacts to them. This one gets into the more of the education type component. This is what you have. You're very familiar with the feedback signs there. We're still doing some analysis to see what is the long-term effectiveness of them. We know they have some impact, but you know, how much and for how long over time does that stick around? And then sometimes we'll do some creative things with pavement markings. The same thing there with, you know, what is the longer term impact of those. What we do mostly with pavement markings is narrow. You all are a very suburban neighborhood. Your houses are set back far. The street is relatively wide, but you know, that context tends to make people drive faster. We know that when you can see wider and there's not parked cars and things like that. So sometimes we will use that and do some narrowing. There's not a lot of narrowing to be done on Knob. I mean, it's a standard 22-foot wide, 11-foot travel lane road. So we're not recommending any of that, but that is a tool. Speed tables, there's one of those was done on O'Brien, but it's basically a speed cushion just without those gaps in the middle. And those are typically longer and a little more gradual, so that you can go over those at a little bit higher speed. Traffic circles, we have used some in the past. We're very careful. The conditions have to be just right. This is one of those that have some consequences. Sometimes people may not, may not drive them just right. They may want to turn in front of the traffic circle. School buses might have an issue with them. We use them with caution. And then chicanes is another very urban treatment where it kind of mimics that on-street parking aspect. Kenner, I think Kenner still has them. It was done out of pavement marking, which is never as impactful as if there was actually a curb or something there to have to drive around. So we are here at meeting one. That's the red part, and we've gone through the application. You all are in the program, and so it's now a matter of kind of settling in on the design. Once we have that, we come back and do a meeting two, and just to give everyone else another opportunity to make sure they heard about it, learned about it, and can have their say. And then we go to an online ballot process. I'll talk a little bit more about the mechanics of that here in just a second. That's me. I'm Jeff. I'm the bottom one. Mr. Thomas is our program manager there at NDOT, so you have their contact information. And here's what we've got for Knob Road. Now I'm gonna walk through this. It's kind of complicated. Is that? My eyes are probably not. No, that's not good. I made it real bad, didn't I? That's pretty close. So, all right, so where we are right now is, we are still looking from White Bridge to, Fleetwood there. And so we know coming from Fleetwood, it's a pretty big hill up to this point, and then you kind of get to that apex of that hill. That slopes about 8 to 9%. That's pretty steep. We don't do any speed cushions. We try not to do anything over about 6%. We definitely don't do anything over 8%. So we haven't recommended anything on this end. Okay, but coming from the crest of the hill all the way down, that's about 4 to 5% until it finally really levels out something less than that. So beyond that would be in play if the neighborhood desires it for speed cushions. And that's what we have proposed. Because this is a 25-mile-an-hour street, we're proposing a speed cushion device which would slow you at that point to 15 to 20 miles an hour. The way we space those is, or the way we place them, and by the way, these little yellow numbers or addresses, just to give you a relative idea for this is about where they would go, is we look at these kind of control points. So the signal at White Bridge, and then the crest of that hill where we can actually start, we look at that distance, and then we divide it by, we're looking for a spacing of something like 400 to 600 feet in between each. And what we know that does is that doesn't give enough room for someone to cross over one of those things and hit the gas and get to the next one. There'll probably still be some drivers that will do that, but that spacing we found to give a good, consistent, slow speed all the way through the area that we're.
I don't agree with that. I think you need to have 3 speed humps between White Bridge Road and Kendall. This is where all the pressure comes from.
Well, we don't have.
And we don't have a problem coming in. This is totally ridiculous.
Let's hear it.
I would have said I agree, and I disagree that there's not a problem there. There's a huge problem there. Where I find it is the people that they're going fast through Brookside Court. But then, man, once they hit Kendall and they think it's a straightaway in front of that church, 40, 50, I mean, people are flying through there. I've got a son who runs. He's trying to get to the Greenway. People are trying to walk on that stretch. It is so dangerous, and people are absolutely flying. I get calmed down all the time when I'm pulling in my driveway. People are passing me as I'm driving my vehicle on top. It is so totally uncontrollable. It's completely uncontrollable.
It is incredible that we built this thing.
We've been here 37 years, we've lived there, how long have you lived?
Yeah,
Okay.
30,
We've
yeah.
been here 34 years.
Okay.
34
I
years.
understand. That's okay.
And if you have a problem
But
with
the
that,
problem is,
you're harassing us.
there is no facts of anything for people to be trying to reach. Leaving where you live down here at the bottom of the hill. You need to drive your car up to the gas station.
Trying to get others to slow down,
Just one nice
but somebody gets
But
killed.
cross channel.
Okay. Well, you're picking up your smile right there. You're picking up the smile.
Oh.
We understand the opposition, and that's why
You are against you are.
listen, we understand the opposition. That's why we do this ballot thing, because we know not everybody is 100%. And we come out, we want to do what the neighborhood wants us to do. We're trying to work and we'll try to find a reasonable solution to it. Not everybody's going to be 100% on this. Not everybody's going to be in favor at all. We have another comment in the back before you go.
Yeah, I have, two questions. One is just what the rough timeline would be from here on out. I don't know if I said it on that previous slide. And then secondarily, I've seen on some, of the city websites about us being a prioritization for bike lane. We were ranked from 60 or 65, so I don't think we were like super high, but if that is all was in consideration.
If that will not, I don't know the details of that. And so anything that we do wouldn't necessarily preclude that from happening. The nice thing is this is not heavy construction. They can be moved. If a city comes in and has a different plan in a few years for this, they haven't really lost anything. We can reuse these things somewhere else. But no, we won't do any kind of bikeway planning in conjunction with this project.
Could you confirm that if we were named a collector street, that would invite higher traffic by nature?
I don't know that it would. I mean, people right now, as they drive on that street, they don't know if it's a collector. They
The
don't.
city said it was a collector street, the city would be okay with higher traffic, is that accurate?
Typically, we don't look at streets in the traffic calming program if it's anything other than a local street. Now, that's not always true. We have done traffic calming on collectors in the past, but yeah, typically we would. And don't even ask me how you go through the process to make it a collector. That goes through planning. That's not NDOT, that's the planning department. I don't even know. But it comes through a document called the Major Collector Street Plan. It's updated every so often. The last time was probably Nashville, Texas, about 5 years ago. You asked about timeline, and so we'll go through a second meeting, like I mentioned, and then after that, if we go to ballot at that point, that's a mandatory 6-week ballot period. So at that time, if that comes out and it's in favor, we order the materials then. With shipments and everything like they are, it's taken us 6 to 8 weeks just to get the rubber in. So then, and then at that point, then it goes on the contractor schedule. That may actually be the quickest part, depending on when this happens. If it happens through the winter time, the group that we use to install this may not be busy striking roads, which is what they do, but you can't strike roads below 50 degrees. So if we're there in the winter time, it might actually be a quick turnaround. But it's several weeks out.
Jeff, do you have, maybe a circularization of the streets that are gonna be including in the voting?
I do. Let me show let me go to the voting. Any other questions? Let me point out one thing. So I showed you that you're familiar with these. Down here at Kendall, the cross section is a little different. Up here, it's 2 11-foot lanes, no shoulder, it's just ditch. Down here, it gets a little wider. You do have curb and gutter, you do have sidewalks. It's 2 11-foot lanes plus that 7-foot parking lane on each side. So what we typically do on something like that, I don't know if you can see, because I'm over here in the bush. outside of the speed cushion, sometimes we will, install one of those flexible delineators. What we're trying to do is make sure people don't drive around it, because if you give them an inch, they will. And so we'll make it so that they can't get around it, at least easily. And so I wanted to just clarify that. In that area, because of that width, we may go to a 3 cushion design. That would only apply, I think, to this last one, with the idea being, again, a car is gonna have to put one side of their vehicle on one of those. They can go in the middle and get by, but one side of your car, the tires are gonna have to hit that. That's
Promoting them go across the double yellow line.
No, we never.
That's what you just said.
No, they can. And you all know we're here because people are driving irresponsible in the streets. So it wouldn't surprise me, but that's why we put those things there.
Another question. Can you outline the parameters of what it is we're discussing here? Like, as a neighborhood, like from like nothing to the most, like what is it that we're discussing? What are we-
Yeah, I mean, if the consensus of the group was that, once you get past a certain point, it really is okay, there's not a problem. I mean, we can talk about that, we can consider that. To me, it makes the most sense to go to the all-way stop. But that's in play. I would say the type and the number of speed cushions, to a point. I mean, I wouldn't recommend lopping off every other one. I think you will not get the impact that what we're all looking for. If your goal is speed reduction, I don't want to say it's okay to do something that's not going to give you speed reduction.
What is the thing that you get going over the law? What, 15?
15 to 20 at the location.
From a 25 and making it in this 15.
At the location of the speed.
And you've got 7 of them.
1, 2, 3, 6, 7.
Okay. So you change it to 15 for those 3.
One other aspect to this I'll point out is where your feedback signs are now. I think when we change this, they'll kind of be irrelevant. I mean, you can leave them there, but one thing we might think about doing is because we couldn't do anything on this hill, you could relocate one or both, as you come down the hill, that you would at least get that feedback in advance of going around the curve and hitting that all those stops. So that's one thing to think about too. We can part of that. Well, if that's a bad idea, we don't have to.
Well, with this being parallel with Hillwood Boulevard, which is the collector street, and you got EMT, you got fire, you got police, you got transit pickup. These cause a problem for these people trying to get from point A to point B. If they have to cut through, at the fire department right there next to EBA, has to come off the west end, comes straight down White Creek Road, and he's got to cut through to get to Charlotte, over say the Publix at the bottom of the hill, or anything there in west. I mean, there's no way. You have hurt them as far as their time to get from point A to point B.
I've seen the fire trucks going down the street. They're not going 60 miles an hour. I mean, they're slowing down because they are in a residential area. And you're talking not long enough to really
Yeah.
matter that much. You're talking a matter.
Your house is on fire and you're doing 15, your house, it's not
Well,
even.
let me clarify, because there's some truth to that, and I didn't point this out, but one reason we use speed cushions more than some of the other devices is because of that picture on the right. There's the reason we show a fire truck there. The whole point of the gaps is to allow a wider wheelbase vehicle like your fire truck, like an ambulance, to be less impacted by those. So these cushions are 6 feet wide. And I drive a full-size truck and I'll kind of hit the outside. I still have to slow down to do it, but anything wider than that, you're going to be able, not fully to straddle, because we've talked to the fire people about this. They know we do this program. They're very aware of all of that. And they don't have a problem with them. And especially when we take those over to them and lay them down and we look at what impact that has, because those water based vehicles are not as impacted as you or I would be going across. So I didn't point that out earlier, but that is an important observation. If there aren't any
Streets, which streets are you gonna be taking them?
yeah. So the ballots work like this. We will take, there's only one street we're gonna ballot, and that is Knob Road, and within the limits of the project. And so the limits again are Fleetwood, the White Bridge. So we're gonna take properties that are immediately adjacent to Knob Road all the way down. I didn't highlight the church property there because we don't do any institutional uses or vacant lots. There's one little sliver of lot right here that doesn't have anything on it. We wouldn't ballot that. Everything else we would. We have a little bit of a special case on this Goodwood Place. It's an owned in common. It's one big parcel, but there's multiple units. We would anticipate balloting all of those folks that own the unit up in there. It's not very.
That's on Aldine Court.
No,
That's true.
it's called Goodwood Place on that map, but.
Oh, that's over on the top of the hill. No, I don't understand where you're taking them. Why did that spot put in there?
It's within the limits of that project, so that's just our policy. A couple other aspects on the ballot process, and this is why this has been a pretty big change, and I think a welcome change for most neighborhoods, is that NDOT handles all the balloting. Used to, we would say, Bob, you're the applicant, and you go door to door, congratulations, you gotta go and talk to every one of these people and get 70% of everybody on here. That, in some neighborhoods, you can imagine, it never was gonna happen. There's too many landlords, too many whatever, and we do have to get the owners. It was never gonna happen. And so, we've changed it to this method. We send this card out to the registered owner. We don't necessarily send it to that address. We send it to wherever the owner is on file. And that card has a QR code. It takes you to a Nashville.gov site where you ballot, you put your name, your address. There's a little code on there, and then you tell us, I like it or I don't. And this, before you've never had an opportunity to vote no. It's been a petition. So if you like it, you wrote it down, but we had no idea if people were in opposition or anything else. So now if there's significant opposition, we capture that. We capture that by doing this balloting process. 66% of the people that vote have to be in favor of it before we'll do the process. So, and then it's a 6-week ballot process.
Is there a voting threshold? 4 people vote.
We hadn't encountered that, but right now there's not. So we say if 10 people vote, 7 of them have to be in favor of it in the project. And the other nice thing is it's 6 weeks. We used to give 6 months, and even then we weren't getting those things back. So 6 weeks, we're done with it, and we know it's we're.
So what about the people that live on Rusty-O past Fleetwood that are between there and Charlotte? They're getting impacted tremendously by this, but you're not giving them a vote.
Anybody who lives on side streets, potentially, anybody. Straight over there. I mean, we have to stop it somewhere. I understand. But yeah, we've had a lot of discussions.
You can take on the street in the middle of the street and stop.
It's not always stop, but yeah. I understand.
What do you mean?
It's always about the 4-way street.
The street begins at Charlotte, and goes from Charlotte to White Bridge, and you're stopping in the middle of the street.
That's one which goes to the Greenway limit. And those of us that use not to get over there also, but
It's all a straight shot, all the way to Charlotte. Each house should, and those on Lansing there, where Lansing comes in, which is cul-de-sac street, those should have been included in this. Because that's basically where you cut it off. Well, no, Lansing's right on down about midway in that section where you're not even included.
I'll go ahead and give the.
So you need to look at that.
I'll give the
It's fine.
that policy exists. We do this in every neighborhood. And the reason is because in a lot of neighborhoods, you might have a street we're working on. And there'll be a subdivision, 40, 50 houses that come off of that street, and they have no way other than to use the street. we're working on, you could make the argument, well, they're impacted, of course they are. But at the same time, they're not impacted by the speeds that we have on that street. So that's why
They're pulling out into that street, where are they not impacted?
only talk about the people that have, you know, that firsthand experience and what y'all are.
Is there a plan in that area right before Fleetwood to put another one in closer to the stop sign?
There's a lot of fun. That's pretty flat on the way down. You want to do it all the way down.
You know, what we would be looking for is a flat enough area with enough distance before the stop and not in a curve. And by the time you factor all of that in, it's difficult. I think it makes sense to stop it at, you know, at kind of the crest of the hill. It would make sense to continue on down. The grade is just fall out. So I think, you know, essentially there, then if we want to do the feedback sign.
Look, when there's snow or sleet or what have you, from the top of Nom Hill down to the bottom of Fleet, it is impossible to even navigate that. And you put in speed humps and you're trying to go over an high speed hump.
What he said, it stops at the top of the hill.
Right.
It's steep, you don't do it.
Okay,
So you don't use that road when it snows.
So what happens to the
what do you
big?
think you don't use it when it snows? I go up when it snows or whatever's there.
There.
There's no speed bumps there to affect you. They affect you on here, but you do have the option to go over to.
How are
Hill
your,
and salt
how are your salt trucks and ice trucks gonna scrape the roads and speed humps way? It's in a,
That's a good question. Let's hear the answer for that.
So,
totally impossible.
they do keep a log of where we've applied, you know, speed humps around the city. Our drivers know that. There's also signage that goes up. We typically don't sign every location, but when there's a number of cross streets, there'll be signs that designate that. So that's another clue for plow drivers that, hey, there's one coming up. But they are aware that there will be humps.
So they scrape it anyway? What do they have to do?
Yeah, if you're getting plowed and salted now, then yeah, they'll continue. You don't come off with this.
I have to go. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. This is the next step.
Now,
What's the next step?
so the next step would be, you know, if there aren't really any major changes to this, we're still gonna go ahead and send out another card and do another meeting. And, you know, you can call in or whatever you want to do, but we'll essentially be presenting a lot of this and then we'll go to the ballot. If you have other thoughts in the meantime, feel free to send them to me or.
What the speed types? Like said right there at Brookvale Terrace. Will that be right after you turn?
Good question.
Yeah. Difficult. Trying to go up now.
Okay, yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And so what, in addition to grades and vertical curve, or you're going over a horizontal curve, or you're turning your wheel, we also are watching for driveways and intersections. You're asking about an intersection here. So we'll push that back. It'll be sufficiently back away. Yeah, we don't want anybody as they turn to have to navigate this thing. We want your car to be straight at that point and hit it head on. Same thing for driveways. Now, we can't always promise that, but we keep it at a minimum 15 feet from any driveway that's been shown to be, you know, enough room. But yeah, we do absolutely watch for those kind of things, those clearances.
It's almost like.
Yeah, no, that's right. You can't, at this scale, it's hard to see exactly. What we will do is, we'll go in and do a much more detailed design plan where you'll be able to zoom in. If you live along here, you'll see your house, you'll know exactly where this thing is going to be in relation to your driveway. And, you know, even at that point, if there are, you know, considerations, hey, we get ponding here, or whatever, I don't think on this street you get ponding probably, but, whatever the case, you can let us know.
I have a question about the speed sensor, because I see this all the time from my vantage point, people who are speeding, it doesn't even register at some point. Is it set that way where it's like? when
I
you're-
think it is. Yeah, because the idea being, you don't want somebody trying to get it to say 99 or something.
That's what I'm like, honestly, a lot of times I don't even, like, I watch it because I was just sort of stunned at how fast people drive that stretch. And so I'll see the 30s and maybe the 40s, but a majority of time, you do not see a number, and that is what frightens me.
Yeah, I don't know at what point it cuts off, but yeah, that's
Okay, I was curious about it. It's working or if that was intentional. Okay.
Would y'all like to see a reuse of that and push it down the street any, or we can keep it where it is. I just think
Probably there might be a better location for it.
it may be satisfying to see that it's now down to 25 or 20.
Yeah, I heard that they hit it and it, crashed into it and it was,
Really?
that was crazy too.
I think it would be more useful down here.
Yeah, I think you're going to try to look at for assault.
It could be. We need to take a look.
Can you tell me, you said it's based on the accidents? What accidents have you had? Can you give me a list of the accidents that have happened? You're showing me a picture of a car.
Okay, I'll show you a picture of another car. Bust it up. You got this one.
And
And you
then
got there.
that's
and-
in the Kindle, not
And car was just 100 feet down the road. If the lady whose gray car that was standing there, she would have been killed.
So we love that data too. You're data junkie like engineers are, and we dig into that stuff, and it's all available actually on something called Metro Open Data. You go back and Google that. You can find all kind of data that Metro collects. Traffic crashes is one of those, and you can do a query and look at all.
I mean, I've seen two cars T-bone at the intersection of Knob and Kendall. They were hit. So, I know you don't see it. It's by my house. I have seen
I
it.
don't have a problem with you fixing your problem. I have a problem with you making me have a problem.
Well, to fix my problem, you may have to be inconvenienced, and I'm sorry.
Go over to Hillwood Boulevard. That's the road if you want to go somewhere distant. That's the collector. Get on it and go.
Hillwood is more dangerous. I know of plenty of people who have accidents. Anytime it snows, people coming off to the four-way stop, there's gonna be a wreck there, and there's very often there are wrecks there. A lot more often
But
than.
how many times does it snow in Nashville? Not a lot.
Well,
Most of the time, the roads are clear, they might be wet. And
well, I see lots more wrecks on Hillwood than I've ever seen. But in your area, I have no problem with you putting this speed bump down at Kendall. I have no problem. I have a problem with your impacting my life. Which is what I feel like you're doing. Because you're taking,
I think
5 minutes out of my life every time I go down the road.
I think everybody in here in a perfect world would say we don't want speed bumps. They are an inconvenience. However, we see that as, as a trade-off for a better environment on the street.
Well, that's something for this time. I want to go put 13 on the street.
that is history. That is gone.
But
That
now
was-
it's said,
that was-
so it's not, but that doesn't mean,
The whole-
that is not some of my, that is not your problem.
Well, I was, I finished trying to get out of my driveway because I,
And then it's a problem that it doesn't matter.
But you're no right to feel. What's not even in part of this?
But it is. I don't know, you're saying it's not your problem, but it is my problem.
You're on the downhill side.
Yes, but 8:15.
And y'all go around and get these wood.
you don't like safety?
I don't have a problem with that street. I don't see anything unsafe in my street. I really don't. There
I
used
think
to
that's
be.
fair. That's something.
I mean, so why not take the one? It's a commercial, it's a wide road. I understand y'all have sidewalks, they don't have sidewalks. You have all the conveniences, but there's one more.
Because people are driving fast on that street.
They run through my yard. They have run through my yard, hit my mailbox and my tree. We see it every party. We see it all the time.
You have all the convenience, you have the sidewalks, you have the gutters, you have all that.
We should have to put on the brakes.
I don't know, I'm saying it's your problem, but I don't see why you should have to be harassed. Because I don't even know why I have to drive 25 miles an hour on the street. Because I don't see the road is wide, the traffic is not so severe, I mean, it's less. There's less traffic going over our hill than it used to be. And I don't have a problem. I don't know what the problem is. I understand that from White Bridge Road to where the channel bar is or where the daycare is, y'all, the traffic bothers y'all. Because it's, I have no idea why you would want to have this. And I've lived there almost 40 years. We moved in there in January of '86.
Well, in a perfect world, people wouldn't be passing me on a double yellow line when I'm coming down the hill, as I'm trying to do the speed limit.
I brought the speed limit. I mean, I'm not
I'm
quite up.
telling you,
I brought
You don't see that type of driving activity on your side of the hill? I mean, there could be a difference there because maybe it's steeper or because it's in a curve and maybe people behave.
And I agree with her on that. I don't think that does.
Because you can't see.
Because you can hardly take down and do that turn unless you're doing 20 or 25.
Yeah.
And, because it's kind of a hard curve. It's not an issue there.
But if we do have a problem on this slope of the hill, we're already not doing anything over there, so I don't know how else we.
Let's take
It seems like there is just a different driving behavior on this side versus this side.
This one is straight.
If you can.
And
see,
you can-
run down the hill,
you can- See what your car can do.
That
And
doesn't help your objection, I know, but I understand it. I mean, you're not seeing what they're seeing.
I'm not, I have no problem, but I really don't. I just like to be in the.
Well, that's how I feel. Drive 60 miles an hour on not. Getting harassed because they're cutting through and they're seeing how fast they can go. And, we have sidewalks, yes, so we walk a lot on sidewalks and people are driving quickly and fast. And so
And
people
jumping
try to
over the
cross
wheels.
street. And so when we try to cross the street, you look, there's no car, you're halfway across.
Next thing you know,
Because
that's it.
they're driving so fast. We have to remember there's a daycare.
Yes.
There is a daycare on the street.
Yes, they drive, they have those little red buggies, and that is so frightening. They're on the sidewalk, they take so much of the sidewalk is right by the street. People come flying through there, it is.
When do they walk the children? I have never seen them on
The
the.
daycare does.
And they.
We have those red buggies with 6 kids
Yeah,
in them.
it's so we do have small children. We have a lot of parents that walk their children.
Yeah.
And people walk their dog down the lawn and so walking the daycare.
Forest one.
Out down. It's very dangerous. No.
I used to walk up the hill and pick up my kids at daycare.
And now it's been a couple of years too. As you was
I would be glad to do it today. More people walk on the street than they ever did before. Nobody ever. But
I appreciate it. So
I mean, you must put sidewalks, that's not as problem.
We had, I heard someone on the call. Is there anyone, you heard a lively discussion here in the room. I don't know if there's anyone on the call that wants to make a comment or a question.
No, just listening.
Okay.
Thank you, though, Jeff, for your time. I do appreciate it.
Anything else? Well, we'll be glad if you have the email addresses. We'll be glad to continue. You know, if you have other thoughts, concerns, or questions, feel free to send those. I can't promise they'll be incorporated in the design into what you hope. Certainly, that's the point of this process, to hear different aspects, perceptions of it.
Where did you see this online?
This presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, it's being recorded, and then I don't know how long it'll take. Maybe next week, it'll be uploaded to the Metro 3 YouTube page. So, you know, if you go to the public access channel, you can watch it. But they have a YouTube page with all the Metro stuff. On it. You watch council meetings, whatever you want to watch. It will be one of those, so you'll be able to pull that up there. But it may take a week or so. Or just reach out if you need a video recording. We'll send you a link to it or something like that. Thank you all again for being here and for your time and your participation in the process. We will look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.